is what you want to hear, but exactly what you need to hear. This is the Sports Source.
Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Scrambled Jakes. When it comes to a morning or lunch meeting, business or friendly, head to Scrambled Jakes at Rocky Hill. Always adding to their already great menu. They've added some stuff recently that just sounds fantastic. And if you have an event or a meeting that you need to take care of after 4 p.m., hey, you can book their big, beautiful, comfortable building, and they provide the food. That's full non-breakfast menu that they've got. Scrambled Jakes, whether you're just looking for a place to start your day, whether you're looking for a business meeting in the mornings, or if you've got something, an event you need to plan for the evenings, Scrambled Jakes is the place. Give them a call. Check out their website to learn more. All right. As I said earlier, since about the 5-minute mark of the Gator Bowl, everything has been going Tennessee's way, including this week, a lot of good news on the transfer portal. Let's take a look at this roster movement. Trey Smith, as we covered, announces he will stay. Offensive lineman Cade Mays going to be transferring from Georgia back to Tennessee. We'll talk about each of these guys, but of course, he'll have 2 years remaining. He's hoping to get the waiver so he can play immediately, former 5-star. Then you got wide receiver Miles Jones, who'll be transferring in from Nebraska. He's going to walk on. He'll have 3 years remaining. He's going to try and get a waiver so he could be eligible immediately. He was a 3-star coming out of high school. And then wide receiver Velus Jones transferring in from Southern Cal. 1 year remaining. He's eligible immediately because he's a grad transfer. He was a 3-star. On the exit door, punter Joe Doyle has entered the transfer portal, which that's a strange story. He averaged 41 yards a kick last year, averaged 41 a kick this year, but he's been replaced by Paxton Brooks, who averaged 42 yards a kick. Now, I wasn't there with the stopwatch timing the hang time or directional what they want him to do, but that was an odd end to Joe Doyle's career, and it's not done yet, but he is in the transfer portal. Okay. Let's cover this 1, 2, 3. Ryan, let me get your take as the recruiting guru for 24/7. Miles Jones, Velus Jones. They were 3-star guys. Well, how much hype was there about these guys when they were out there? Was Tennessee in on either of them to begin with?
Yeah, I was going to say, recruiting fans might remember the name Velus Jones. He was involved with Tennessee pretty heavily under Butch Jones. Coming out of high school, Tennessee was one of the 3 or 4 favorites in the end for him, and he ended up going with USC and kind of a puzzling guy because he's not had a great career so far, but I think this is a good addition because he's experienced. He fills a need as a potential slot guy, gives you some speed to go have more of a deep threat, and I just think Tennessee needs some experience there. You've got not a lot coming back, so it makes a lot of sense, and even though he's a 3-star guy, he was pretty highly regarded coming out of high school. Now, Miles Jones is more of a flyer, I think, but it's a good one to take because he's a former 3-star guy out of South Florida in a good program, played with Brandon Johnson, the Tennessee receiver in high school, so a lot to like about both of those guys, but especially Velus Jones. He could be the kick returner right away and probably help on offense too.
Josh, neither of these guys put up big numbers where they were.
Right.
But as Ryan mentioned, this was a position of need for Tennessee. You're losing Callaway, Jennings. You need some people to come in there.
Yeah, Miles is a walk-on, so why not? And maybe there can be some kind of recruiting connection in the future. Velus Jones would be the one that I would look at and say, okay, at least in special teams, you should be confident that he can help because of his success there. You also have the evaluation with T. Martin, who coached at USC, where Velus went, and now he checked out Tennessee a year ago. So he's a guy that's older, and you do need help. I don't know that he's a starter, but if he can at least be a guy that can come in and catch 10 to 20 balls this year, that helps you.
And I wish him luck when he gets here because he's already been called Velus, Velus, and Velus. All right, David Oven, let's talk about Cade Mays. His eligibility coming from Georgia, normally you would say he'll probably have to sit because Georgia's not going to clear him. But he's got a pretty good lawyer, and there's a real weird story that could help his chances. Tell us about that.
A seismic shift for Tennessee, who obviously wanted Cade Mays, son of Kevin Mays, a former Tennessee legend. But yeah, when people talk about these waivers, it's not about as much your story, as much your program. The reality is, how good your lawyer is directly proportional to the likelihood that you're going to get a waiver. And I've been covering college football a while, and Tom Mars has been in the immediate eligibility game for a while. I cannot think of a situation where a guy that took Tom Mars on his case did not get eligible that year. And so this seems like a pretty open and shut case for him when you have a guy who is suing his previous university, Kevin Mays' father, as a recruiting event a couple years ago. lost part of his pinky in 2017. It was like a chair incident, but suing the university for $3.5 million. I mean, you can question the timing of the lawsuit. You can question all these things, but reality is, if you're trying to say that your previous institution was not a great atmosphere, and your family is suing that institution for $3.5 million, and you have a good lawyer, I'm betting you're going to see Cade Mays wearing a power tee on game days come next fall.
I would think so too, and I wonder how much that's just leverage. I mean, you look at when it was Cade Mays. He didn't start 3 of their last 4 games, and he only started the 4th game, their bowl game, because 2 other offensive linemen left, and they threw him in at left tackle. He wasn't playing. Sam Pittman then goes to Arkansas, the offensive line coach he wanted to go there for. All of a sudden, a lawsuit gets filed. Now he's transferring to Tennessee. That just seems to me like, Kirby, why don't you okay the waiver here? Why don't you give it a nice thing, and that lawsuit goes away?
This guy.
I just wonder.
I will say too with Cade, he was moved around a ton last year.
Let's show that.
Yeah,
I got a graphic.
We saw the same thing with Ryan Johnson at Tennessee last year. And that was one of the reasons why he left. But with Cade Mays, he played so many positions. He was like their backup at every spot, and I think that was a big reason for him to want to
At
head
the
over
top,
there.
if you get your magnifying glass, that's the only way I can put this on screen for you. You'll see the left side of Tennessee's line was locked down. Wanye Morris, 12 starts. Trey Smith, 12 starts. Brandon Kennedy, 13 starts. And you see Ryan Johnson, who David just mentioned, he's left via the transfer portal. As you see, he played 3 different positions last year. Marcus Tatum, also he's in blue because he hit the transfer portal. The right side of that line is where you had some question mark. Carvin got 7 starts the last 7 games. At right tackle, it was Calvert and Wright, 5 tackles each, but Calvert started 3 of the last 4 games, including the bowl game. You look at Mays. He started 1 game at left tackle. That was the bowl game. 1 game at left guard. 6 games at right guard. 2 games at right tackle. He didn't start 3 of the last 4, as I mentioned. He also started 1 game. Now, he didn't play the whole game there, but he started at tight end. So the guy's pretty...
Dalmon Anderson's gone.
He can do it. There you go. There you go. But it is interesting. This is a guy who played mainly. He got 8 starts last year on the right side of the line. It looks like you're looking at battles between Carvin, Mays, Calvert, and Wright for the right guard and right tackle position.
Yeah.
This was not a highly rated offensive line this year. Pro Football Focus killed it. I mean, they were low 100s toward the bottom of the 130 teams out there. However, on paper, Wright and Morris a year older, you'd think they'd be better. You throw in a guy like Mays who should be able to help all along the line wherever you need to plug him in. This has the makings of a pretty good step forward for Tennessee's offensive line. And how many times have we said over the last few years, you want to get good in the SEC, you want to get back, improve on the line of scrimmage. This is a great piece of news for Tennessee.
I'll say this, the expectations will be unrealistic because they always are in these situations. But just looking at it on paper, I mean, again, a year of better from Wanye Morris and Darnell Wright, former 5-stars, and then Trey Smith and Cade Mays potentially at guard, both former 5-stars. I mean, Tennessee's had some great offensive lines in its history, but how many times have they had that many highly ranked 5-star kind of guys on the same offensive line? On paper, it's a really talented group.
And if you're Carver and Calvert, you're sitting there saying, yeah, well, beat me out. 5 stars. I mean, and I think that's what Jeremy Pruitt would be most happy about. Competition.
Legitimate competition.
Finally have legitimate competition.
It's crazy when you look at this line from 2018, you look at it now, just the pure personnel flip. There wasn't a pro on this line in 2018 when Trey Smith went out. Now, you probably have 4 guys who are probably going to be day 1, day 2 draft picks. We'll see about Brandon Kennedy as well. I mean, just pure talent perspective, it is insane, the upgrades between recruiting and then getting Trey Smith back and then bringing in Cade Mays and then, of course, Brandon Kennedy. It is quite a flip for them.
And suddenly Vol fans aren't screaming for the head of Will Friend. All right. When we come back, our hoops coach, Mark Pancratz, will be over at the Wifey board. He did this last week, and I loved it. A lot of you responded to it positively as well. He's going to break down some stuff for us. Tennessee, well, I'll tell you what. Let's talk about it on the other side, and I'll not waste his time. Come on back on the Sports Source.